hang up, then I literally hear her saying, "Stay well." And then I screamed and I broke down and I said, "My mom is dying." Then I call her friend and I tell her this whole thing that happened. And I'm saying, "My mom is going to die." And she says to me, "No, she's not going to die. She was just saying goodbye because she was leaving." And I said to her, "I know she's going to die." She said to me, "I must stay well. I know she's going to die." My name is Nkuli Mpepuka, and I was born and bred in Tembisa in a small location called Hospital View. That's where I grew up most of my life until when I was old. Now I reside in Centurion and I'm a mother to a 16-year-old boy. So we grew up at home. We were 4 of us and I was the youngest of the 4, staying with my mom and my dad. My mom she used to work in the industrial firms where she worked hectic hours and crazy shifts. My dad, being a cop, was almost always at home, so he was the one who used to help look after us. We also stayed with my aunt, who's my dad's sister, who was brought in to come help look after me because I was still young at the time. Growing up, we're an okay family where most of the time, though, my mom was always away working her shifts and being occupied because she was part of the Workers' Union Forum. She was leading that, so most of the time she was away, where my dad was always around, being a person who was working in Tembisa. So my sister and I grew up very close to my dad, especially me, and I was also close to my aunt because she was the closest person as a mother to me, who was always around. My dad and I were extremely close with each other because most of the time, if my mom is not here, my aunt will help get me ready for school. My dad is the one who takes us to school, brings us back to school. On Sundays, we go to church with him. When it's visiting families, my dad is the one we go with. My mom was hardly there because she was busy with her work and her Workers' Union Forum. So at night, when my mom is working night shift, I would be the one who sleeps with my dad. You know, everything basically we did, my sister and I, we did around my dad, and he was literally taking care of us. He was the one cooking, helping my aunt to cook. He's the one who taught my sister how to cook. I was still young to learn anything then, but like my dad was the person around all the time. So when it would be at night, when my mom, it's her shift of, well, she's not working, she comes at home and I'm supposed to sleep with my dad as per usual. When my mom is not around, my dad would then turn against me. Now all of a sudden, like, "No, go sleep with your aunt." And I would be like, "Bro, but I mean, like, you and I always sleep together." And sometimes when I resist, he would then say to me, "No, sleep by the feet." I just didn't understand it. Then I thought my mom is the one who's coming in between my dad. So I really didn't like her that much. And also I didn't really know her much because she was never at home. So my dad was sick. He had cancer. He was in and out of hospital most of the time, but when he's around and he has picked up, I mean, the same routine would go on where he takes us to school. If I'm sick, they call him from school. He comes and picks me up, takes me to the doctor, drops me off at home, and all of that. He got sick to a point where his cancer was now on stage 4, and he couldn't stay, or rather the doctors had said to my mom that they cannot help with him anymore. There's nothing more they can do basically for him, so we just need to take him so that he stays at home. But then there was a struggle with my mom where she was at work and didn't have anyone to help look after my dad. When she would call my my grandmother, who is my dad's biological mother, she would say that she can't come help look after my dad because she's looking after the kids around the area where they stay for money. So my mom really had to find somebody that could come and help stay with my dad during the day or at night when she's not there. And it got to a point where she had to just leave her work and resign and come stay with our dad full time. But then there was this other grandmother of mine who is my grandmother's younger sister from my dad's side, who every time when my dad starts complicating, we would call her. She stays in Tsakani. and she used to work in Kempton Park at Checkers. So every time my dad starts complicating, we call her. In fact, at some point, I thought that she was my dad's biological mother. So we would call her, and we know when we call her, the next day she is there at home. And when she knocks off at 6 o'clock, you would just hear by a knock at the door. Then she opens, and when she opens, she starts singing a hymn. And then it would feel like, okay, help is here, things are going to be better. Then she would walk to my parents' bedroom singing, and as soon as my dad's hear that my grandmother is there, he would open his eyes, and you would see him, coming back stronger. And my grandmother would get there and would pray, and we'd all pray together, and that kind of gave hope that things will be better. This one night, my dad complicated, and we did the usual, calling my grandmother. And the next day, she came in the evening, and she slept at our place. So in the morning, when we wake up, we do the usual routine, getting ready to go to school. And after that, we go to our dad's bedroom usually, and I give him a kiss and say goodbye to him. But that morning, my grandmother was busy parading around outside my parents' room, but we didn't pay a lot of attention to that. So as we were about to go in to say bye to my dad, she then stops us and says, no, your dad didn't sleep well at night, so he's resting now. Go to school, and then you'll see him when you come back. And we're like, okay, well, didn't pay attention to that. We then went to school. So when we got to school, I think they called the school to tell them they must let us go at a certain time. So we go to school, and so it was now break period, and our teachers told us that the principal needs to talk to us. We must go to the office. Then we go to the office, and the principal says to us, no, your dad at home wants you to come back. He needs to speak to you guys. And then he asked us, would you guys like to go after break, or do you want to go now? And me being, I think I was actually 5 at the time, and I was with my older brother and my older sister, and I answered like, no, we want to go now, before break. And then my brother also agreed, like, no, can we just go now rather? And then they said, okay, fine. Then we went, took taxis, and went back home. So when we got home, there's a thing that they used to do in the olden days. They put, I don't know what it is, on the windows where there's death in that house. So they smear, I don't know what it's called, it's white. So it's a symbol to show that there's death in that family. And when we got home, there was that on our windows. And as we walk in, I'm like, yo, the windows are so dirty. Oh, why are they this dirty? I mean, they must clean our windows. Who did this to them? Because I didn't know what was happening. It was my first time seeing such a thing. I guess my brother and my sister knew what was going on already. So we go in, and we just go straight into my dad's bedroom. Then when we get there, my sister goes in, and then she finds my mom. My mom is sitting on her mattress with a candle next to her. And then as soon as she walks in, she starts crying. And then when she starts crying, my mom starts crying. Then my grandmother starts crying. Then everybody's just crying. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. Then I'm like, okay, everyone is crying. Let's all cry together. Also cry, And then, so we all cry. It's just commotion going on until we all calmed down and everybody was quiet. And I'm like to myself, okay, now that we all stopped crying, and then I ask, where is my dad? And my grandmother says to me, no, your dad has gone to heaven. I'm like, hey, to do what there in heaven? It's like, no, God came and fetched him. It was my first time ever knowing about a person going to heaven. I just didn't understand it. I'm like, so why did he leave me? And when is he coming back? And they're like, no, he's going to stay there now. And I'm like, so what's going to happen to me? Why did he leave me? It was just, a whole confusion. I was upset, I was angry. And nobody could actually explain properly what had happened and where is my dad? Why is he in heaven? Why did God take him? But during the whole process before the funeral, my aunt came, the one that was staying with us. So it was at least better because there was a familiar person around the house. So every time people came in and they start crying, I just didn't know why they were crying. I would also run out screaming. It was as if I was losing my mind at the time. But then my aunt would come take me and put me on her back, and and that would calm me down. I mean, I was 5 and I was a chubby child. Imagine a 5-year-old being carried on the back. But it calmed me down, And then I think it was a Friday when my dad came back, before the funeral the next day. And my grandmother says to me, "Come, let us go see your dad. He's in that box." And I was upset. I'm like, I don't want to go see him. I don't want him in there. I want him to come out and come back here. And I refused to go see my dad. Then the next day of the funeral, they were like, okay, now we are going to church. Then after church, we're going to put Daddy where he's going to stay for the rest of his life. And that got me so upset. I remember I was screaming and I was running around the house saying, I'm not going there. I don't want to go there. I want my dad here. Until my grandmother from my mother's side said, no, they can go to the funeral and she will stay with me at home. So they went. So I never attended the funeral. After that, when everything was back to normal, everybody has gone back to where they stay, we remained with my mom. And my mom is a stranger to me. And I was just upset because my aunt has left. She had gone back to her home. My mom is here, my dad is gone. And I'm with my siblings as well. Then my behavior at school started changing, where I was then, because I'm a very bubbly person, I was quiet. My marks dropped very badly. And every time when my classmates came to play with me, I would fight them. I just didn't want anyone or anything. Even my mom, when she talked to me, like I'm thinking, why are you even talking to me? Why are you even here? I don't want you around. I want my dad. So I think I understand it now too. It was a depression. And then my teacher noticed what is happening with me. And then she called my mom in and said to my mom, there's something that usually happens in the black culture where a widow and the last born child is taken to, I don't know, maybe it's a traditional healer. I don't know what that person is called. They take them there so that they go through some, I don't know if it's cleansing ceremony. I really don't understand what was going on. But basically my teacher was saying to my mom, we need to go see a person who's going to help us through this situation. And then my mom also didn't know anything, like she was clueless about what my teacher was talking about. But then we decided that, or rather she decided that we go see this. It was a gogo, an old woman, very nice woman. So she didn't stay far from the school that we were at. So my mom would come at break, come pick me up, then we went to this gogo. So when we got to this gogo, the first time, I remember there was, so she put some primer stove on the floor with a pot with boiling water and put some, I don't know, maybe it's muti or herbs, whatever that was. And then my mom had to go in there and steam. So she covered my mom with a blanket. So there was a very small stool on the floor close to the primer stove. Then covered my mom with a blanket and put bricks around there. And then when my mom was inside there, then she started screaming, I don't know why she was crying. Maybe it was too hot and everything. Then I got upset. I remember getting up, wanting to beat this girl up. I'm like, take my mom out of there, because I'm starting to scream as well, crying, not knowing what's going on. And then this girl calmed me down and told my mom, you need to also calm down because now you're scaring the child. And then she stayed there for, I don't know, whatever minutes that was. Then when it was my turn to do that, she figured I'm not going to go in there by myself. So my mom was allowed to go inside there with me. I remember my mom just held me tight because we are going through this experience that we've never gone through before. And it was hot in there, and it was something which was foreign to us. But the fact that her and I were together inside there, it felt like we were just going through this together, and we were there for each other. You know, we held on. I remember her looking at me and telling me that it is going to be okay. And then we had to persevere through that whatever process that was going on. So we did that on an everyday basis. Every day she would come to school, pick me up, walk there and back. And that process got me very close to my mom, because that was the only time which I got to spend with my mom without my siblings and everyone else. I don't know what the process is, but I figured it helped because I kind of came to my senses. And at the time, society had rejected my mom because she was wearing black clothes, and they had said that she's got darkness, is nyama. And literally what happened is that my aunt, who's my dad's older sister, literally went to the shop and bought material. She's a seamstress. She came back home and made an attire for my mom, one for when she goes out to town and the other one to put on when it's home. So it's just black material. It was never taken to any prophet, any healer or anything. It's like you going back to buy material, come back, make yourself a dress. But people had said that she's got this darkness on her, that they didn't allow her to go into their house. Not that she was going into people's houses, but there were certain things, certain help that she would need, especially with my dad's documents to go claim at the SAP, it was called at the time. So she would need to sometimes go and understand from other police how things are done. And I remember this one time, this guy didn't want my mom to come into his house. And he said my mom must just stand outside, sit by the grass, and he will come out and speak to my mom. That really destroyed me. It kind of hurt me, because it's not like she has put herself in that position. And even in taxis, when she would go in, she was told she needs to sit on the right-hand side at the back seat by the corner. And sometimes when people come in and see her wearing black clothes, they didn't want to come sit next to her because she's got this darkness that they say she has. To a point that sometimes my mom would go with us or go with me to town, so that then she sits at the corner. Then I sit next to her so that the other people can follow sitting next to her. And my logic tells me, if she has darkness and I'm sitting next to her and that darkness rubs off, it means I also have darkness. So whoever that sits next to me, then clearly they will also get that darkness. That's what I thought. I remember it was only 2 households where my mom was allowed to go in. They are family friends. They were extremely close to my dad and our family as well. So they told my mom, you are welcome to come in our house at any time. Your darkness is our darkness. So she was going through a lot. Society was rejecting her because she was a widow wearing black clothes. I was also rejecting her in the house, and she was also dealing with my dad's death at age 38, you know. So I came back from school this one day, and I had all this in my mind to think, my mom is being rejected by everyone else outside. She's also dealing with the fact that my dad has just passed on. She has 4 kids which she needs to raise on her own. And also I am rejecting her at home, and I felt extremely bad about it. And I came back from school. I put down my bag, and she was outside cleaning. I went out, I stood by the door in the kitchen, and she was outside, and I called her. And I said to her, Mama, did Dad go to heaven? Because now I think I was understanding what had happened to my dad. And I said, is he in heaven? And is he staying there with God? And my mom said yes. And I'm like, so are we one day also going to go to heaven and find him there and reconnect with him? And she said yes. And then I said to her, I'm really sorry about everything that I've put you through. And I promise from now on, I'll be a very good child. And I hugged my mom. And that day, it was the first day that I actually got so close to my mom. Then life was fine. We grew up. And in 2004, I fell pregnant. I was scared to tell my mom, but eventually I told her. And when I told her, she was quite happy. She embraced the pregnancy. The father of my daddy was there as well. His family also supported my pregnancy. So everything was just fine. And then I gave birth in 2004 in December. And things continued to be okay, great. Then in 2006, August, on the 1st, so it was the week of the 1st, between the 1st and the 5th. It was extremely cold that week. So I'm asthmatic and I have bronchitis as well. If I get very cold, I go into, so I get this terrible bronchitis or terrible asthma. And my bedroom is very cold. So during the winter days and nights, I sleep all in my mom's bedroom because it's warmer than my own bedroom. So in that August week of the 1st to the 5th, when it was really cold, my son and I moved from my bedroom to go sleep with my mom. My mom's bedroom, there's a door, and on top of the door, there's like a glass window. When you're inside my mom's bedroom and there's light from the other rooms, you can see through that glass door. So my sister's bedroom is next to my mom's bedroom, and I'm a light sleeper. At the time, I was working contracts, so some days I was at work, some days I wasn't at work. So when I wasn't at work and we're sleeping in my mom's bedroom, because I'm a light sleeper, any sound that happens around or movement, I can quickly hear it. So my sister in the morning, when she wakes up to go to work, she switches on the light and I can hear the click of the switch going on. So whenever I hear the click in my sleep, I would open my eyes, look through that glass window, and I'll see that also she's up, she's going to work. But then on Tuesday, it was her last day at work, so she was going to be on leave on Wednesday, the next day. We're sleeping on Tuesday night. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, I hear this click sound where I'm dreaming now. And in my dream, I'm like, okay, I wake up and look at the glass door. I see there's light on the other side. And I ask myself, but my sister is not going to work. Why is she waking up? As I say that, I see a candle and it has a light. It rises. And when I see this candle, I then say, Sedilaka. Sedilaka mpone setsetsela. As I say that, then my mom comes. This is now in a dream. Then my mom comes. She moves me away from her, and she keeps moving me away from her. And I say to her, Mama, no, I'm crying. I'm like, Mama, please don't. Mama, please don't. So my mom kept shifting me away from her, and I was refusing, like, no, Mama, no, please don't do that, no. So when I look away, my mom looks at me, and when I look at her, she looks away. And then I woke up from the dream, and then I tell my mom, I just had a terrible dream about you. And my mom doesn't respond. She ignores me. Then I fall back to sleep. And then the next day, during the day, as we're sitting, I tell her about this dream. And my mom says to me, did you pray? I'm like, no, I didn't. My mom says, you must pray. You need to pray. And I said, yeah, but I told you about the dream and you ignored me. And she says to me, you need to pray, Nkuli. You really need to pray. And I'm like, yes, I'll pray. Then come Friday, I go to work that day. I come back from work. At night, the next day, on Saturday, my mom and my siblings were going to go to a funeral. And in the morning, she struggled to wake up. She was so exhausted, and I was also exhausted for some reason. My sister kept coming into the bedroom to say, Mommy, wake up, we need to go to the funeral. And eventually she woke up. I was in such a deep sleep that I couldn't get out of it, but I could literally hear everything that was happening. My mom bathed, went to make her tea. Then she comes into the bedroom. I'm sleeping. She calls my name, Manono. That's what they call me at home. She says Manono, and she calls me 3 times. But I can't get up for some reason. But I can hear her. She's standing next to me. She says to me, "We are leaving." And she says, "Stay well." When she says, "Stay well," I get this thing that my mom is going to die today. But I can't get up to respond to her. And I just, nod my head to show her that I can hear her. Then they leave. And as they leave, they go out. When I wake up later on that morning, I had forgotten about the whole incident in the morning. On that Saturday, Orlando Pirates was playing against IS Cape Town for the Telkom Knockout Cup. So my brother calls me when it's halftime of that match, and he sends me a call back. And when I see it, I'm like, oh, he wants to find out what the score is. And let me just quickly call him and tell him it's still 0-0. I call my brother, and my brother says to me, Mommy just had a chest pain as we are about to leave to go to the graveyard. So we are rushing her to the hospital now. And I'm like, where is she? And he says she just collapsed. So we just arrived at the hospital now, transpired hospital. And I say to my brother, okay, let me know how it goes. And then he says, okay, fine. Then I hang up the phone. I call one of our family friends who's my mom's best friend, and I'm crying. Oh, so when we hang up, then I literally hear her saying, "Stay well." And then I screamed and I broke down and I said, my mom is dying. Then I call her friend and I tell her this whole thing that happened. And I'm saying, my mom is going to die. And she says to me, no, she's not going to die. She was just saying goodbye because she was leaving. And I said to her, I know she's going to die. She said to me, I must stay well. I know she's going to die. And then I hang up because she doesn't get what I'm saying to her. I call my baby daddy and he says the same thing to me. It's like, no, she was just saying goodbye because she was going away. I then hang up because they don't understand. I call my brother again and I ask, how is mom? And my brother says, Mom Oshonile. And I just lost it, and I knew that my mom was going to die. And then at the time, I just knew that I will never live without her. My life has come to an end because I am also going to take my own life because there's no way I can live without my mom. And I quickly run to my bedroom. I search for any type of tablets that I can find, and I was going to drink everything. But for some weird reason, I always have pills lying around because I'm a sickly person. When I get there on that morning, I couldn't find even one pill. And I thought to myself, okay, if I can't find any pills, I'm going to drink every detergent that's in the kitchen. And as I walk out to go to the kitchen, my son was standing there. And I just fell on my knees and I broke down because I knew there's no way that I'm going to kill myself and leave my son. And that's how my mom just left, just like that. That was in August, and in December we were trying to deal with her death, which was very hard. One morning my baby daddy tells me he can't be with me anymore because he's found someone else. And it was just 4 months after my mom has passed on. Now, I had another reason to look forward to life, and that was because of my baby daddy and my son. I thought we were going to build a family together, and this guy then tells me that he's leaving me for someone else. It literally broke me. But what had happened when my mom died, I knew that there was no doctor, no psychologist, no anybody that was going to take this pain that I was feeling of losing my mom. And that was at that given time, I surrendered my entire life, my entire being to God. So when he told me that he is leaving, even though my world fell apart again, but when God puts you in a situation, in the midst of that situation, he is also there. And because my life was now surrendered to Him, the pieces of my life that were falling apart, He put them together with the super glue of the Holy Spirit. So I was able to understand that, okay, this guy is gone. I felt like he could have left me at any given time, but not just after my mom has passed on. But it wasn't his fault that my mom died, and it wasn't his fault that he wanted to be happy with someone else. So if he wanted to leave, I had to let them leave. And the lesson I learned there is that you need to forgive somebody, whether they come to ask for forgiveness or not. But you just need to forgive them, because God puts you in a situation but never leaves you. He remains within the midst of that. Because sometimes God can calm the storm. Sometimes He allows the storm to rage and calms the child. And that is what was happening at that time. I moved on. I dedicated my life to God. I went to church. I joined a ministry of children. I was a children's ministry practitioner. And I did amazing things with the kids. I mean, I was working with a friend of mine whom we were very good together. And we took our kids to competitions of acting. I mean, we wrote plays, we directed them, we won awards, we came number one at every level. And things were really happening for me. But also I was struggling from something that was happening to me which I didn't understand. And when I went to consult, I was told I needed to respond to a calling of being a preacher. Eventually, even though I was running away from it and denied myself, I got sick and doctors couldn't find anything, and they told me, we can see you are physically ill, but we don't know what's wrong with you. They ran all the tests in the world and nothing was literally wrong with me, but I was sick. And then I decided at some point, after consulting with a couple of other ministers, to find out, am I hearing what I'm thinking I'm hearing? Is God really calling me into ministry? And they said to me, yes, you need to respond as soon as you can. And I answered to the call. I went for all the assessments of being accepted as a preacher. I registered with a college, I studied, and then I got ordained eventually in 2017 in May the 28th. So what happens is that when God puts you through a situation, it's a learning curve for you, and that's where you grow. And right now I have developed myself, because my life is not dependent on any man or anybody. You just concentrate on the things that will build you and the things that will make you who you are. Now I'm an intercessor. I'll be walking down the street and people that don't even know me, they would stop me and say, please pray for us. I get calls from anybody, or friends, or even people that are not close to me, even church people that I don't even know, and they call and say, we are going through this, can you please pray for us? I'm now a preacher, and I get invited to women's events. I preach during Women's Month. I even get invited to other churches where I deliver the word of God. So in everything that God's put you through, He never leaves you. Instead, His hand keeps lifting you up. Hi, my name is Nkuli Mpepuka, and I have been through the most.